Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at breaking down a duck. Duck is one of those gloriously wonderful animals that nobody really gives credit for. As soon as you say duck to a lot of people, they say, it's a bit fatty, so on and so on, and I think they're just afraid of it. Do not be afraid of duck. It is a wonderful beast. In terms of flavor, yes, it's a little bit gamier, yes, it's a little bit oilier than a chicken, but the meat on a duck is very lean, it's very good for you, and it's also a red meat, which means it's high in iron. The fat on top is some of the best tasting fat that you could possibly get. It's also high in unsaturated fats, so that's a good thing if you talk to all the health people. I'm not one of them, I'm not too concerned about that, but if that's the sort of thing that you look at, then there's the good news for you. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break down this duck, and I'm going to show you what you can do with the various bits of it. So we're just very quickly going to start out with the wing tips. The wing tips, you can't really do much with them, there's not much meat on them. What you want to do is just snap them first, and they'll come right off. Same thing again over here, just pop the bone out, get your knife right into the corner there. Whoops, I missed. And it comes right off. Following that, sorry, I should have done that first, take the neck out, any gizzards that might be in there. This was actually a utility duck, so it doesn't have any gizzards. I know, shame on me, I was going for cheap. Also, all this fat that's in here, take that off. Do not throw it away. As I said, this is some of the best tasting fat you'll ever have. As you can see over here, I have a whole tub of the stuff. We'll get into that in a second. But take the fat out. Put that all to one side as well. And now we get into the fun part. You're going to take off the breasts. So, to take the breasts off, you can see pretty much in every case, right along the middle, you'll see a line right there. And that's the breastbone. So all you want to do is get your knife right inside that line and right down. Make sure your knife is as sharp as you could possibly get it, and it makes the job so much easier. And if you don't know how to sharpen a knife, I've also done a knife sharpening video. You can go check that out. So just in there like that, right along the, always follow right along the bone. And get all the meat that you can. To be honest, I probably should have started by taking the leg off first. I'll show you that as well in a second. Also, get all this meat off the top, sorry, all this fat off the top here. Again, put it to one side. And that is all off of there. And that right there, you can see that. That's right where the shoulder joint is, connecting the wing. And you just, again, follow as close as possible. Cutting right next to the bone. And there you go. And we're going to disconnect it right about there. Right in the middle of all that fat. And there is one breast with the wing attached. Put that down to one side. And now I'll show you the leg, which I probably, like I said, should have done first. But again, what you want to do is push like that until you hear the pop. Now you know the bone's being dislocated. And you're going to come in with your very sharp knife once again and get right into that. Probably a little easier for me to do this one. You're going to get right into the skin right there. You can see the difference. You can see obviously there's meat under there, and then there's meat under there. You want to get right in there, and you want to follow that again right to the bone. And once you've got it on the bone, you can actually cut down on there. And that is the joint right there, connecting to the leg, which is being a bit tougher. There it is, and that's out. And following the bone once again, there is also a little bit of meat right there. That is the oyster. I think I missed a bit of it. You want to make sure you get that meat out too. That's a tasty little bit. Again, cut there, and that is your leg. We're going to trim that up in a second. Just put that down there, and I'll show you that again, hopefully properly this time. Again, go as close as you can to the bone. You can cut on top of the bone there to loosen that skin up. And then you want to dig in right there. That pops out the oyster. And squeeze them back like that. Easier if I turn it around, again being left-handed. There we go, right through the sinew, following the rib cage as close as you possibly can. Do not lose any of that meat. And you're going right down the bone until you get that whole thing, try to leave the tail behind, off. That's two legs. We'll come back, we'll look at the other breast now. Same thing again. Follow that bone. Get your knife right up next to the bone. Slice as clean as you can. And then get your hands in there, try to pull it away. Go as clean as you can, right down the side. And if you don't get it perfect on the first one, don't worry. You're not working in a fine dining restaurant. Nobody's gonna say, oh, you didn't cut my duck right. You're doing this for you, for fun, right? You're doing this at home, you'll be okay. So right down the bone again. And in this case, I've taken all of that off as well. And that is what you're left with. One duck carcass. Don't throw this away either. This, you're gonna get that little Pope's nose off the back. That's the name for the tail. Somehow it looks like the nose of a pope. You're gonna get all that fat out of there. You're gonna keep your fat in one pile. You're gonna keep your bones in another pile. And then, like I said, you're gonna clean this up. Because in the case today, I am going to salt these breasts and we're going to make prosciutto. So I've just shown you how to leave the wing on if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to do that for a dish, that's what it would look like. Obviously all cleaned up. You're going to trim all this fat around the edges, make it as pretty as possible. Just pretend that for a second. That's how it would look on the plate. In this case, as I said, I'm going to take this bone out. I don't need it for what I'm doing. So that's all coming off. just like that. You see on the back here, this little bit here, that's your supreme. You can take that right off. You can just rip that off with your hand. Same as on a chicken. A little sort of tenderloin piece of meat that's very tender. And then once you get all your stuff out of the way, all your fat, you can trim this up. And same with any other animal, that silver skin, you want to get that off, because what happens with that, obviously it contracts as soon as you put it in the oven, and it will toughen your meat. So cut the silver skin off in this case. I know in the case of my ribs video the other day, somebody came back and said I didn't cut the silver skin off. You don't have to cut the silver skin off if you do that little crisscross that I did in the ribs video. But in the case of every other meat, it's easy enough. Just get your knife in there and cut it off. And then once you've done that and you've cleaned up, like I said, all this fat around the edges, what we're going to do with this lovely little breast, oh, missed a bit of silver skin there. And a little bit more at the edge. And a little bit there. There you go. That's pretty clean. So what you want to do with that is wash your hands off. Get yourself a nice clean bowl. Make sure it's clean. And then get yourself some salt. In this case, I'm using kosher salt. I usually use coarse grind sea salt. Kosher salt, pretty much the same thing. And you can put a layer down in the pan, enough to cover the bottom of the pan. Give that a shake around, make sure it's all evenly distributed. Move it over here so you can see it. Nothing fancy, just put some salt down. Make sure it covers. And then you're going to take your breast, and you're going to drop it in there. And then you're going to take some salt, and you're going to fill her up. And you are going to completely cover the breast with salt. Don't have any bits sticking out. And what this salt is going to do is it's going to draw out all the moisture. Moisture is your enemy. Moisture is the friend of bacteria. Moisture is what helps the meat break down. So by putting the salt in there, you're drawing all the moisture out. You're drying it, same as if you were a mummy 2,000 years ago. So now that that's completely covered in salt, all I have to do with that is cover it in plastic wrap. Try not to fold it over. And this is going in the fridge. Because it's small like this, it only needs a day. In the case of duck breasts, you only need a day to dry that out. Once that comes out, obviously now we're not going to make this a 2-day long video, so I will show you that tomorrow. But once that comes out, I'm going to take off all the salt, I'm going to rinse it, I'm going to pat it dry, I'm going to put on some herbs, and then I'm going to wrap it in cheesecloth and hang it in the fridge for a week. And it will make some of the tastiest prosciutto you could possibly imagine. I know a lot of people haven't even heard of duck prosciutto, but trust me, it tastes almost the same as the ham stuff. It is absolutely amazing. So getting on with the rest that I have here, as I said, we'll come back and we'll look at these duck legs. So normally what I would do with these duck legs is I would confit them. Confit means to cook in your own fat. And like I said, I would normally do confit, but I already happen to have, from the last time, I've already got 2 legs in here. These pans, you ever get your hands on one of these, find yourself a kitchen surplus store, buy these, they're great for storing stuff. And you can't really see much, you can just see, that shouldn't be poking out, that's a slip on my part. You basically got to make sure everything's sitting underneath the fat. And once it's underneath that fat, I've had this in the fridge for probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. And they will stay good, basically, almost indefinitely, while they're in that fat. And you can leave that in the fridge as long as you like. And the point of that, again, that's another one of those ancient preservation methods that we've sort of lost touch with. I mean, like, you'll hear it making a comeback with all the foodies in the neighborhood. And they'll talk about confit and they'll talk about, you know, terms like that. But it really is one of those great ways to store food. Naturally. As I said, if you find a store, this happened to come from a duck farm that's not too far away from me. And this is a 2-kilo tub of duck fat. I picked that up for about 20 bucks. And what you can do with the duck fat is make the world's greatest roast potatoes. That's the one use I've found for it. Again, though, it's low in unsaturated fats. It's got a great flavor to it. It's got a higher smoke point than olive oil. It's pretty much a good thing all the way around. So back to here. Like I said, we're just gonna trim that up, take off all this extra fat around here. And that is one duck leg. Oh, we can even take that off. And I could sit here for quite a while and trim all those bits off, but you get the idea. So we'll put that there, and we'll get the other leg out. We'll do the same thing. Take all of the fat. We're going to put the fat to one side. And what we're going to do is we're going to render all this fat. So that we have the exact same thing as what's in that $20 tub over there. Never ever throw away duck fat. Absolutely delicious. It will be a crime. It'll come off there. See all this right around the leg? All that is liquid gold when you melt it down. And then this little piece of silver skin sticking out of here, that you can get rid of. Absolutely no use for that. That's just sinew. I can get the other one. It's a slippery little thing. Put those there. We will again take off that other Supreme. Get that. And again, if you want to do a fancy dinner one night and impress somebody, leave the wing on. Makes for a nice presentation. If you don't want to leave it on, by all means cut it off. And what you can do with the wings, you can confit those as well, and then turn them into duck wings. And again, slightly greasier, fattier than chicken, but absolutely delicious. Take out all the little bits of bone that you have left over. So there's a wing, there's a wing. Take off the silver skin again, no use for that. And take off all the little bits of fat hanging around the side. That's just extra. So once that's gone, and you've cleaned up, just stick in there. You've cleaned up the breast as best you can. You could, if you wanted to, you could fry this in a pan and that would be dinner all by itself. Don't put this kind of thing into a hot pan. You want to start out the duck slow. Nice and slow, because again, this skin is full of fat. So all you got to do is very gently score the meat like so. And then you would take that and you will put it in basically a cold pan. You turn on the heat low and all that fat will render out. So you put it skin side down to start. And you let all that fat render out, and then once that's golden brown, you flip it over, give it another couple of minutes, let that side sear a little bit, and then you're looking at a beautiful duck breast. You don't want to cook these things well done either. You can eat duck mid-rare, and you want some of that. Like, once you get duck past medium, it basically becomes tough as nails. Because again, it's a very lean meat. There is no real fat inside the meat. All the fat is in the skin. So if you cook a lean meat past medium, you're eating shoe leather for dinner. You don't want to do that. So that's the breast, the legs, the wings, the supremes, and then you get into the bones. Like I said, you got your neck there, you got your carcass there. What you can do with that is break that in half. Now, if you want, you can roast this. You can get a little bit of color on it with some mirepoix, which is usually carrots, onions, celery, and then throw the whole thing into a pot and cover it with water and then just let it simmer for about, in the case of this, it's not very big, so you can probably let this go for an hour or two. Simmer it down and you'll come out with some gorgeous stock, absolutely delicious again. After you've done that, you get into all these little bits of fat. Oh, and don't forget your wingtips, throw that into the stock pot too. But after that, you're getting onto all these little bits of fat. And what you do with those, you cut them up into bits roughly that size. So you're going to do all this. And then you get yourself another pan. You throw them, just to give you an idea, we'll take this pan because it was sitting on top. It doesn't have to be cast iron, it can be a regular pan. But all these bits are going to go in here. And once I've got all this cut up, it's going to go in here, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of water, maybe a cup of water, into it. And again, you turn that on a low heat. And when it goes on low, it's going to come up slowly. It's going to make all the oils come out of this little, of the fat, and the water will slowly evaporate. And what you'll end up with will again basically be duck fat, liquid gold. And that stuff again is great for things like roasting potatoes, for cooking in general, for making confit. Any number of things you can do with it. And again, it's absolutely delicious. Never ever throw away duck fat. So I'm just going to put that aside for a second. And we're going to do one last talking point before we go. Because for those of you who watched my video the other day, you probably do remember I promised an update. We'll take out that dirty board, switch it for a clean one, and here's your update. This is the salmon that I made the other day with the anise and the fennel, and as you can tell, I did kind of cut into it already because I couldn't wait. So there again is what you're looking for. You see how firm that is to the touch? Just about all the moisture has been taken out of this. I actually did let it go a little bit longer. You can do a soft cure, which is about 24 hours. You can do a medium cure, which is a couple of days. You can do a hard cure, which is what this ended up being. And this sat in the cure for about 4 days. But it has come out absolutely beautiful in color. Let's see if I can slice off a little bit better piece there. I missed at the top. trying to get it as thin as I can, but you get the idea. I do one more. There we go. The thinner the better, because somehow that adds to the flavor. If you can see through the meat and you can see your fingers, I think I said that they said the ultimate test, hold on. Excuse me. The ultimate test is if you can put this up to a piece of newspaper and you can see the print through the meat, that's how thin you want it. So we'll do this because it's plastic and I can wash it off. That's how thin you want it. Make sure you got a nice sharp knife. And then yep, that tastes pretty good to me. The anise and the fennel came through. Because I left it so long, it's a little bit saltier than I'd like it. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with that, how that turned out. So that's your video for today. I'll just show you one more time. Out of a whole duck, again, you're getting the bones, you're going to make stock, you're getting the fat, you're going to render, you're going to have duck fat for your potatoes. You've got the wings. You can either throw them in the stock or you can, as I said, make duck wings, also delicious. You've got these little beauties. To be honest, just pan fry these real quick. They're delicious by themselves. And in the case of the breasts, you can either pan fry it like that, have it for dinner like that, or as I said, I'm going to make prosciutto out of this, and that's also going to be delicious. I'll do an update for that later on, and then we'll probably do another video next week and I'll show you how that turned out, same as the salmon. And then again, you've got the legs, which you can either confit, or you could probably pan fry them as well. Or you could just leave the whole thing whole and roast it. It's completely up to you. So many ways to go with duck, so many delicious alternatives. But those are just a couple. So if you like what you saw, leave me a comment, leave me a like, leave me a subscribe. You know the routine by now. Thanks for watching. Take care.